Haha, you guys are so funny.
Good evening. I'll now call the City of Cannon Falls City Council meeting for Tuesday, May the 2nd to order. Roll call.
Councilmember Abady,
Present.
Carpenter,
Here.
Dalton,
Here.
Mattson,
Here.
McCusker,
Yeah.
and Mayor Robinson.
Here. All please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome everyone to the first City Council meeting in May. It's too bad it couldn't have been yesterday when the weather was nasty, but nice day out there today. At this time, I would like to amend the agenda before we approve it. I would like to amend it by making item 5 recommendation of John Altoff to fill our city council seat. Item 6 to public input. Item 7, introduction of the library director. Item 8 would be the public hearing, or item 9 would be the public hearing, 10 the consent agenda, and 11 council business.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion by Cedar and a second by Ken. All those in favor of the amended agenda?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. This time, I would like to bring to the council the name of John Altoff and recommend that him for the open position for city council. John's been a business owner, or was a business owner here for over 40 years. He's lived here for basically all his life, and a good citizen, and I think he could do a good job of helping us here on city council. So at this time, the chair will take a motion by Morris.
Second.
And a second by Mike. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This time, if I could get John to come forward, and I will have City Administrator Johnson swear him in.
Wait till the mayor's ready.
Oh, all right, right.
All right. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, and state your name,
I, John Altoff,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and that I will faithfully
and
and impartially
impartially
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
of the office of council member of the City of Cannon
of
Falls,
the office of council member of the City of Cannon Falls,
to which I have been appointed,
to which I have been appointed,
to the best of my knowledge and ability,
to the best of my knowledge and ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll have you sign this. Be so kind, right there. Welcome.
Welcome, and we got a seat for you.
Yeah. Welcome aboard.
We'll see. Until I run her out.
Okay, at this time, we will move on to item 6 this evening, which is public input. Citizens may speak to issues not on the agenda. Before speaking, please give your name and address for the minutes, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Ross Nelson from Welch Mill Canoeing and Tubing, address 14818 264th Street Path, Welch, Minnesota 55089. I'm here again to be putting in again at Riverside Park. Hope we can continue on to keep doing that. If there's any problem, I'd like to know right away. Don't hesitate to call me. Mr. Johnson, have you been getting the insurance and stuff from the? Okay, you haven't seen it. Well, they're supposed to send it to you. If not, let me know and I'll double check again. So I'd like to continue on. My wife and I would like to continue on as we have been doing.
Done a good job.
I think he's done a good job. I mean, we've never had any issues down there with you guys putting in there. You've always, it's always been clean, and we welcome all the folks coming to Cannon Falls, so we appreciate you guys doing that.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Nothing else?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I don't think we need a motion for that, do we? I don't think we have in the past, no. Right, yep. Okay, anyone else wishing to address council? If not, we will move on to item number 7, which is the introduction of our new library director, Nicole Miller.
Well, we've got Nicole on the agenda tonight to welcome her here. She started at the library on April 24th.
Hi.
Hi.
Good addition to our staff, and I'll let you do your own introduction.
Okay. Well, I recently came from Gilbert up on the Iron Range, if you don't know where that is. I was the library director there for 5 years, and before that, I'm from Connecticut, so I have Minnesota roots, but I've got a little bit of that New England in me. But I'm really happy to be here. I love Cannon Falls. It actually reminds me a lot of my hometown. So I'm just so excited that I'm here now. So
Welcome.
thank you.
Welcome to town and welcome aboard, and we hope to be working with you for many, many years to come.
I hope so too. Okay,
Thanks.
thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, that moves us on to item 7. We're going to have our presentation for our 2016 audit presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I'm Brad Faltasek with Abdoika Myers. You should have in your packet 2 reports. One's our audit report, which has the blue cover, and the other is the management letter, which has the clear cover. I primarily will just go through the management letter itself. It's just a high-level summary of what's in the audit itself. I know there's some new faces on the council, so if you have any questions, we certainly can open up the financial statements and dive into those a little bit too. So, but I'll start with the management letter, and again, if you have any questions throughout, feel free to just interrupt me, and I can try to address those. First page of that management letter is just outlines our responsibility in performing the audit, and that is to give an opinion on your financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. So we are giving you an unmodified or a clean opinion. It's an opinion you're looking for when you have an audit performed. So it just shows that when we came in, the accounts were adjusted and represented the picture of the city. As part of arriving at that opinion, we'll look at your internal controls, and if there's anything in those internal controls that we see as maybe raises to a higher level of risk, that maybe something is misstated within the financials, or maybe potential for fraud, we would bring that to your attention within the management letter as a finding. We are reporting one finding related to your financial statements this year, and that is the preparation of the financial statements. It is management's responsibility to prepare the financial statements in their entirety. It is our responsibility as auditors to audit those financial statements. We do prepare the financial statements as part of the audit, however. So this is an internal control finding just because where we're getting the information is the same person that's reviewing the information that once we prepare the information. So this is a finding we put in probably 85 to 90% of our audit. So it's nothing unusual for a city your size to have this finding. I would bet 90% of the other cities in the state, Minnesota, have the same finding in it. So, but it just is there to, again, for your awareness that it is your responsibility to prepare these financials, or management's responsibility to prepare the financials. And just, again, take a look through there, and if you have any questions, make sure you're asking questions and getting good answers. Also, as part of the audit, we'll look at, on the bottom of that second page, the compliance findings or compliance issues. The state auditor requires us, as part of our audit, our financial statement audit, to look at a number of, about 7 different checklists that we were required that have different statutes that we need to test as part of our audit. We didn't find any, or didn't see any issues related to those statutes this year, so clean opinion on the compliance-related items as well. Page 4 is some general information. At the bottom of the page 4, we start getting into the financial results. I think page 5 with the graphical presentation is a little clearer to understand and look at. The top of that page, we just compare, or this whole page, we're comparing your fund balance at the end of the year for your general fund compared to the following year's budget. You do have a fund balance policy that you only have a minimum fund balance of 40 to 50% of your following year's budget. So you're at 66%. You can see on the top chart there, 66.4%, which is a healthy fund balance. We typically recommend that it stays around 50 or no lower than 50%, and that 50% mark comes from you get a lot of your revenue through your tax settlements or your tax payments from the county, and you get those in June or May or June, and then in December at the end of the year. So you want to have enough at the end of the year to get you to that next tax settlement time period. Page 6 is a high-level summary of your results of your general fund. So total revenues, total expenses compared to your budget. You can see your revenues came in about $151,000 above what you had budgeted. Expenditures were about $40,000 under what you had budgeted for the year. You did have an additional transfer out that wasn't budgeted, $260,000. You can see there as a variance right in the middle of that chart. And that was a transfer to the library fund to support the debt service on the library, or the city's portion of that. Page 7, we talk about, or show the last 3 years of revenue sources in the general fund. So again, we're still sticking in your general fund. So these are the areas where you're getting your revenue sources. So taxes, license, and permits. You can see the majority of your revenue, like I said before, comes from taxes. About $2 million is received in your general fund for taxes each year. One other thing I like to point out here is from 2014 to 2016, your revenues increased about 5% over those 3 years presented. All the other categories there seem to be pretty consistent from year to year, nothing big. The biggest change from 2014 was the tax revenues. Page 8, same thing with just for expenditures. In the same time frame from 2014 to 2016, your expenditures actually decreased 1.3%. Your total expenditures decreased 1.3%, but that had to do with the transfers out. You had transferred out almost $500,000 out of the general fund in 2014, or in 2016, it was just about $370,000. We also have on this chart, we compare your city to other cities of similar size. So other cities about from that 2,500 to 10,000 population, that Class 4 city. So we take a look at your expenditures and just divide those by the number of residents. So you can see your total, if you look at the first line there, total general government expenditures, you're spending about $172 per resident, where your peer group, again, that other cities of similar size are spending about $133. So that's kind of how you'd read that chart. Overall, your total current expenditures, you're spending about $703 per resident. Peers are spending $564. That's going to change. That's going to be different. Somewhat varies from city to city on what cities pay for out of their general fund, what type of different programs they have being paid out of their general fund. So, but that just gives you a comparison of what other cities are spending.
So what prompted that spike downward in the other
In the other,
expenditure?
in 2015, as the transfers out, that last line before the total there transfers out, you only transferred out $108,000 out of the general fund in 2015. So that is making up the entire most of that other balance. And you transfer items out for various things throughout the year.
I think that
You have a
his
question?
question was more directed to staff,
Okay.
because we see that there were fewer expenditures in 2015, if anyone recalls why that was.
I can tell you what
Yeah.
they were in 2014. We did transfer money to the library construction fund for overages in that project, and that was 300, I don't remember the exact dollar amount, but it was a large dollar amount. We did not do that in 2015, and then in 2016, we did that $260,000
library.
transfer for the DEM.
There you
So
go.
That's why.
Thanks.
Page 9. Top of that fund, you have some special revenue funds, and these are special revenue funds because they have a restricted or committed revenue source that's it also has committed or restricted revenue or expenditures. So they have to be spent on specific things. So we have our library, cable, public TV, and your fire department operations. So we just want to make sure, looking at each one of these funds, that they're not going into deficit. Their revenues are supporting what they're spending their money on. So each one of these you can see have increased this year, 19,000, 14,000, 18,000 respectively in each of those three funds. So those funds are collecting revenues enough to support what they're spending their funds on. The next section there, capital project funds. So these are any funds you are setting aside for either capital equipment purchases or any construction projects that are going on during the year. So the first one there, the 2016 street improvement project, you can see was a deficit at the end of, these are fund balances, so a deficit at the end of 2015 and just under, just a deficit again in 2016. So that fund, once that project is closed out, will have to be supported with either a transfer in or another revenue source to make up that deficit. All the other funds there you have, most of those other funds are just monies you're setting aside each year for capital purchases in the future. You have the 2013 East Side Improvement Project there, third one from the bottom. That has $21,000 left in it. There's some work that may need to be done yet on that project. That's why that fund hasn't been closed out. But we do recommend that once these projects are complete, the funds be closed out into their respective sources. Sometimes you'll have an option on where you close those out. If there's a bond associated with the project, those funds are required to be put into that bond fund. So, page 10 and 11, your debt service funds. So here we have funds that you're setting money aside to pay debt service requirements on either bonds or capital leases. All these on page 11 are your bonds. Kind of describes what a debt service fund is on page 10, but if we look on page 11, we have in our governmental funds, so these are not bonds that are associated with water or sewer projects. So in our governmental funds, these would be street projects or building projects or those types of things. They have about $6 million outstanding in bonds. So these are the different bonds you have outstanding, or the bond funds, total cash balances in each one of those funds, and then total assets. The big difference between the cash and the total asset number is if you're receiving assessments on these bonds. So those assessments are collected over 10 years in a lot of cases. So those receivable balances make up that difference, which will be paid to pay off those bonds. So we always recommend make sure that you're doing projections to into these bond service requirements to make sure you're going to be collecting either through levy or assessments enough to pay each of those years' debt service requirements. Then in the chart there, we have the debt service requirements for these bonds. You can see there's a big jump or downward from 17 to 18, and that was as a result of issuing the 2012 refunding bond. You refunded a prior bond with the 2012 bond, and there's a jump downward in the debt service requirements for that bond in 2018. And then you can see all those other years, that's when bonds are falling off. Page 12, we get into your enterprise funds. So the enterprise funds are set up to support themselves with charges for services primarily. So we can take a look at the water fund, the first one here. Here we take a look at just the cash ins and outs on that top chart. So we're looking at cash receipts, which is the blue line on the left, or blue bar on the left, and cash disbursements on the right. We're just looking at operating type activities as plus the debt service requirements. So there are other revenue sources and expenses, capital expenses coming out of these funds. But for this chart, we're just taking a look at, are your operating receipts meeting your operating expenses plus your debt service requirements? So you can see in 2016, your receipts were a little slightly less, as well as in 2015. And I know you're doing, and I think you're talking about tonight yet, a rate study with the financial management plan. I think you're going to be talking about these rates. So in the last 2 years, actually all 4 years presented here, your operating receipts haven't met your debt service and operating expenses. But you can see it hasn't affected because you do have some other revenue sources coming in here. So if you look at your cash balances at the bottom, these are total cash at the end of each year. So you ended this year with about $1.1 million in cash in the water fund. The red line is the minimum target balance. So this is where we wouldn't want this bar to go. That's really the minimum operating cash balance you'd want. So anything above that would really be available for capital or those types of items. So it's not like you have excess cash in the fund because you do have projects coming up that you may be spending these funds on. The disposal fund on the next page, again, it's top chart. The operating receipts haven't met the operating disbursements in each of the 4 years presented. And then your cash balances at the bottom. So cash balances have been pretty steady, that $700,000 to $800,000 mark in the last 4 years. But here you can see that operating reserve line, that red line there, is slightly below or slightly above the actual cash balance. So
What constitutes the disposal fund? What is that?
sewer.
That's sort
Page 14. So those are your two big enterprise funds. Your ambulance fund. Here you can see your operating receipts are meeting. You have no debt in this fund. Your operating receipts are meeting your disbursements. Cash balances were steadily increasing through 2015. You purchased ambulance in 2016, which dropped that cash balance. But still, healthy cash balance in the fund. Stormwater fund, you can see this one has been increasing from $2,800 in 2013 to $314,000 in 2016. You can see, again, with the top, your operating receipts are much higher than your disbursements and your debt, but you do have some projects coming up that are storm sewer intensive, so you will be spending some of this money on those capital projects. Deputy Registrar, this typically is just a break-even fund. You can see in 2016, your disbursements were slightly higher than your receipts. That was a result of adding additional part-time employee to the department this year. So, recycling fund is your last enterprise fund, and this one is also meeting the receipts are meeting the operating disbursements. So it's steadily increase in your cash balances in this fund, ending with about a $90,000 cash balance. The last chart we'll talk about is on page 18. And this, again, compares your city to other cities of similar size in these ratios. So it's nice to compare your city to others, but typically try to take a look at what is the trend in your city. Are you going up or down, and is that a positive or a negative impact? So your debt to assets, you're at 44% compared to your peers at 34%, so slightly higher there. That's where we're just taking total liabilities outstanding divided by your total assets. So basically how much of your assets you have debt outstanding on. So about 44%. So slightly higher, but you can see that's stayed pretty consistent the last 4 years. Debt service coverage ratio, this is taking a look at your enterprise funds. Are your enterprise funds operating receipts, net operating income meeting your debt service, your operating expenses and your debt service requirements? So we'd like to see that at least at 100%. You just fell below that 97% in 2016. Debt per capita, this takes a look at all the outstanding debt, governmental enterprise debt, divides that by the population. You're at just under 3,900, where your peers at 2,500. That just has to do with the number of projects you have going on, the different, the bonds you have to associate with that. It's interesting that your debt per capita is at 3,800, where you're and higher than the peer group, but your taxes per capita are much less at $438 per resident, where your peers are at $510. That's because a lot of your projects, a lot of your bonds are being paid back with either water sewer charges for services or special assessments. So you're actually charging the residents, the specific residents that are getting the benefits out of the improvements. Current expenditures per capita, you're at 863, slightly higher than year before and higher than the peer groups at 688. Capital expenditures, that's going to fluctuate from year to year, just depending on number of projects you have going on. You can see in 2016 with the 16th Street project, it bumped up $317 compared to the previous year at $31. The last two kind of tell how old your asset or infrastructure is within the city. So the governmental assets is the first one at 65%. And so the example I always like to use is if you just install the street and we say on the accounting life it's going to last 20 years, a 50% mark here would be that it's 10 years into its life. So on average, your assets are about 64% left of their life. Compared to your peers, you're about the same. Okay, then the rest of that is just some, page 19 explains those ratios a little more detail, and then we have some future accounting standards that will be implemented, but most of those are, nothing's going to affect your numbers per se. It's just note disclosures and stuff that we need to disclose as part of the financials.
Are there any comments or questions?
I don't think so.
We're gonna have the workshop on this kind of stuff afterwards, though?
We're going to have a workshop on the water
Right.
rates after this, yes, after the meeting.
Okay. Well, the one question I'd have for you is that it seems like when I've been on here before and we have these audits, it always ends up about 50 to 60,000 that we were over budget. So when the audit comes in, it says, yeah, everything kind of came out, but we had about 50, 60,000 extra. This year, when I read this, it seemed to me like it was up around 185.
That you budgeted less than what you actually received?
Right. So did I read that right, or?
Yep, so your revenues came in $150,000 more than what you'd budgeted, and expenses were about $40,000, so that gave us $190,000. Where you'd budgeted at $65,000, well, you budgeted $65,000, if we're just looking at revenues and expenditures, budgeted $65,000 revenues over expenses, but it came in $256,000.
Right, and.
Yep.
Isn't that a little bit, I mean, in the past, that seems to me like that's higher than what we've been in the past.
And, well, we have two bullets there at the bottom of that page 6 that kind of explains it. Part of it was tax revenues. When you budget your tax revenue, you budget primarily just what you're levying this year. So you may receive that plus delinquent taxes. So taxes came in about $53,000 more than what you budgeted, which it's hard to budget more than just your levy. Insurance dividends is another big one. Those came in about $40,000 more than what you, and I don't even know if you budget insurance dividends because you just never know what you're going to get with those. So that was another $40,000 that.
One thing in the past, the first time I was on the council, I understand this extra just gets rolled into the next year's budget. Is normally the way it works, right?
It gets rolled into your fund balance.
Right. So the next year, I don't quite understand if you have a $50,000 extra and there's 180 from last year, why that thing doesn't keep growing, but it don't seem to do that.
The fund balance?
Yeah, the extra.
So you had 190 there, but you did not budget the $260,000 that was into the library fund either, so that brought that back down. So it spent it there.
So I guess
This
my
year.
question to you, what I'm getting at is, we try to do everything that we can to keep this water and sewer bill down that's just going up on us. We try to keep taxes down. So actually, in this particular case, I think last year we went up about 6-8% on the budget. So actually, we probably went up more than we would have had to keep everything balanced out. So that's my only concern that I'm thinking about for the next budget. And I realize you people don't like things to be neutral. You like to show a positive to things, but to me, anything positive, we're actually overtaxing people and overcharging them. So it's just a concern I have. Thank you.
Yep, and I kind of reviewed what you're gonna be looking at later in your work session too, and I think a lot of those projections will answer, or will help, provide that roadmap of where you're gonna be in the future, so I think that work session after this will help answer a lot of those questions.
Thank you.
Now, we don't have any major projects this coming year.
Okay.
We do a year from now. Is that gonna, how much of a strain might it put on for what, compared to where we are now?
Well, depending on how you fund that, I would assume if a large project, you're probably gonna bond for it, so that'll be, those debt service requirements, or will be spread out over the life of that bond.
Right.
So you do have some bonds coming off, so those levies will be dropping off for the number over the coming years. And again, I know that's all outlined in the stuff we're gonna be looking at in the work session, so, that's all. I mean, I think that'll answer a lot of that question too, on how that bonding 2 years from now is gonna affect, or a year from now is gonna affect some of those tax levies and the effects on residents.
Any other questions? Not, well, appreciate it, and we'll see you at the work session.
I'm not gonna be there,
You're not gonna be there?
but
Beautiful night like this, you
I
don't
know.
stick around for work.
Gosh, yeah.
Well, appreciate it. We appreciate all the work you guys do when you do the audit. I know you guys are here for quite a while and go through everything with a fine tooth comb, so we appreciate it.
try to. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So moved.
Can I get a motion to accept the findings of the audit?
So moved.
Yeah, okay.
I'll second.
I got a second by Morris. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. All right, that moves us on to item 8 this evening, or actually item 9, public hearing. Be resolution 2275 certifying unpaid utility charges to be collected with taxes. And I will bring that to Linnell.
Thank you, Mayor. It is our quarterly public hearing to certify the unpaid utility charges to be collected with the property taxes if they remain unpaid at the end of the year.
Okay. This time,
It is down this time, I see.
yeah, it's actually
It
down.
was like 20-some thousand, I mean,
Yeah.
20,000, which wasn't bad
Yeah.
before, but now it's 17.
Yeah, it's going back down. It was creeping up, but it has gone back down
Looks good.
over the last time. All right, at this time, we will open up the public hearing concerning the unpaid utility charges to be collected with taxes. Is there anyone wishing to address the council under the public hearing? Is there anyone wishing to address the council under the public hearing? Is there anyone wishing to address the council under the public hearing certifying unpaid utility charges to be collected with taxes? If not, we will close the public hearing at this time, and the chair will take a motion to approve Resolution 2275 certifying the unpaid utility charges to be collected with taxes.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ken, second by Cedar. Any discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Carries. That moves us on to item 10 this evening, the consent agenda. Items of this area of the agenda may be adopted or they may be removed and placed in the business area of the agenda for discussion purposes before approving. For the folks at home, I'll read the consent agenda. Item A is just and correct claims for the accounting period ending April 27th, 2017. Item B are the meeting minutes for the April 18th, 2017 City Council meeting. Item C are the meeting minutes for the April 24th, 2017 Special City Council meeting. Item D is accepting debit and credit cards. Item E, Resolution 2276, support for Dillsby Dam funding. Item F, Tom Bergeson Evaluation Summary Report. Item G is the Ron Johnson Evaluation Summary Report. Item H, second reading and adoption of ordinance 352, amending section 111 of the Cannon Falls City Code, alcohol licensing and regulation. Are there any items anybody wishes to bring down this evening?
D.
Okay, item D will become item 11B.
Did you say D?
D.
D is in dog.
Okay. If not, with that, the chair will take a motion to approve the consent agenda minus item 10D, which is accepting debit and credit cards.
So moved.
Okay.
Second it.
Motion by Cedar, second by Leroy. All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. All right, that brings us on to the council business, which is item 11A. As we discussed last Monday night, the the contract for the city administrator, he is due an increase. I asked Linnell to put together those numbers for the 1%, 1.5%, and the 2% increase. At this time, it'll be up to the council to approve the bump for that increase. So it's up to you guys to make the recommendation.
Not everybody all at once.
As you can see, 1% increase on salary would increase his salary by $928 for the year. 1.5% would be $1,401, and 2% would be $1,873 for the year.
But he already got a cost of living.
He got the cost of living adjustment, but per his contract, he is eligible for this if the council so deems.
Right.
I make a motion, we do 1.5%.
I got a motion by Ken for 1.5%. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Let's get a second by Cedar. Any discussion? If not, Chair will take a motion to approve a 1.5% increase for City Administrator Johnson retroactive to March 10th.
I think you already had the motion.
Right.
Okay,
Well, to approve them,
Right.
approve the 1.5%.
okay, I see.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
I'll abstain. Okay, I have a 4 to 1 and an abstention. So motion carries. And abstain, and Leroy denied. All right, that moves us on to item 11B, which is the accepting debit and credit cards.
Okay, I just wanted the council to know, Linnell gave on Public Works last month a breakdown of it, and if you could just do a real quick, I think it would be good for the whole council and people to know. It was very well done.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not gonna cost the city anything.
All right. I wasn't quite prepared, but I'll do the best that I can. I attended a conference in March, and one of the vendors that I met with was a company called GovPayNet. And they are a company that has been in business for over 18 years. They do business in 45 states, and they have nearly 3,000 agencies. They first started dealing mostly with law enforcement agencies and have more recently opened it up to other cities, other city business, I should say. And one of the nice features that they have that I've not been able to find with other companies that we've talked to is that there's no cost to the city. The cost for this product would be borne by those customers that choose to use it. They will accept MasterCard, Visa, American Express, and Discover in credit, debit, and prepaid debit cards as well. They can make payments on site here at City Hall. They can do them online, or they can do it by phone. If they do it by phone, there is a slightly higher service fee, but they'll be notified of that prior to it being processed, so they will have that option to decline if they choose to then do it in a different format. GovPayNet has the highest security rating available, so that is very important for us. That will be, they would be the ones that would be responsible for all the security laws and requirements that go in line with accepting debit and credit cards. They have a call center that is operated 24/7, and they have a support team that is also available to the city and to the customer. This company offers training for staff. They have a complimentary media kit, so they will help us get the word out to our customers. Let's see, trying to go down my notes here. I did do some reference checks, and everybody that I talked to has had nothing but good things to say about them. They said that they've been very responsive to any questions or concerns, that the reports are easy to read, the information that they put out on the website and the reports that we receive are customizable, so they will meet our needs. And I did have one city say that a customer accidentally paid the city a bill that was supposed to have gone to somebody else, and the company was very responsive in returning the money to them and getting that all straightened out. One of the things that we are suggesting is that we start with our utility bills at this time only. We would like to kind of get used to the program, make sure we understand it before we would expand it to other city fees, such as perhaps building permits, swimming pool, park reservations, things like that. One thing I will note is that our motor vehicle department would not qualify to use this in our office, and that's because there is up to a 48-hour delay from the transaction time until we actually receive the money, which normally is not an issue in other business that we do. But for our state, that's a state account, and that money has to be into the bank the very next day, business day. So the delay in that would not allow us to utilize that, but we are looking at maybe some other options that we can offer, and we'll bring that forth when we're ready to do that. So in a nutshell, that's kind of where we're at, but I'll be happy to try to answer any other questions that you may have.
I think it's a great thing, and maybe we'll be able to lower what we voted or had a special meeting tonight, so it's worth a good try, I think.
I think it's going to really be interesting because this next generation does not know how to operate with cash or checks, and it's not a good thing or a bad thing, but they're used to the credit card for everything. So
Yeah.
I really appreciate your efforts into this, Linnell. I think this is something we should have done before. So it'll be very interesting to look at a year from now and see if it's made a difference in bringing down that. So appreciate it.
I really think it'll help collecting a lot of those fees, especially with the young millennials that, it's amazing. I don't know how they balance their checkbook. Oh, they don't use a checkbook. But I don't know how they do it, but they seem to make it out okay. Yep. With that, Chair will take a motion to approve the accepting of debit and credit cards.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Morris, second by Cedar. Any further discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. That moves us on to reports. Tom?
Hopefully the weather breaks in the following week or two. We have some hot mix work to do. We have some spray patching to do. If you ever get up on the Ridgecrest area, the asphalt just flakes off in thin layers that we can't patch, so we come in with a spray patching process every year to Band-Aid that. So that'll be happening in the next week or two, weather permitting, if we ever get warmer. I'd like to ask for the public's help As I emailed all of you before the meeting, the USA, again, box, it's down by the recycling boxes down by the pool. It is just frustrating to look at what's down there. There's TVs, there's mattresses, there's things. I did talk to the manager. He said, "Oh, I'm sorry, we should have picked it up last week. We'll pick it up this week." Well, it's not their fault. They're doing a service for somebody. They're collecting things, and in all good spirited things, somebody got carried away with it. We pick these things out of the river. We pick them out of the compost site. Now my fear is with the citywide rummage sales next weekend, are they going to load that up again? So I'd like the public to just be advised to watch that area. They're dropping off paint and all kinds of materials, and it really looks bad, and it's disgusting. So anything you can do to help us out would be great.
I did drive by there tonight before the meeting, and the truck was there, and the area was all picked up and cleaned up. So I think they must have sent somebody down right away to get that cleaned up. So, it's if anybody sees anything happening, make sure everybody reports it so that we can find out who's doing this illegal dumping, because we don't need the junk laying around. Does our librarian have anything for us tonight?
I filed the annual report last week. That was my #1 priority. So that was done with the state, and all of the libraries in the state have now filed annual report per state law. So that was a really good introduction to Cannon Falls.
Thank you.
Thanks. Chief?
We had the do-a-thon this last Saturday. As you know, this sort of kicks off our summer events. Coming up May 10th, we have a Shop the Falls event going to be held in the evening. Then we'll have the Memorial Day Parade, and then the end of June with a bike race, followed by the fair, followed by Art and Wine in the Park, followed by the Fireman's Dance. Things will just keep rolling about every 2 weeks after that. That's all I have.
Thanks, Chief.
I have a few things. We met last Thursday to go through the punch list with Henches on the West Side 2 project, and there wasn't a lot on the list, fortunately, so they'll be attacking that over the next couple weeks or thereabouts. A couple, maybe 2-3 meetings ago, you talked about the Charter Commission. I haven't forgotten about it. I'll be working with Campbell Knudsen and on the what you want to do or options for you as far as establishing the Charter Commission. So that's still out there. The next council meeting, Scott Rebke will be here for the Cannon Valley Trail, give a presentation. And the first meeting in June, Mayor Robinson and Councilmember Carpenter will be in Washington, D.C., and I'll throw it out there as far as what you want to do on that one. Second meeting that I would like you to discuss is the first meeting in July, which happens to be scheduled for 4th of July. So the June meeting, Mayor, maybe you want to...
Yeah, I was thinking that for June, maybe we meet the 2nd and then meet the 3rd Tuesday for the June meetings after we get back. So it would be June the
13th?
got a calendar on it. Yeah, June 13th, that Tuesday, and then meet the following Tuesday on schedule. And in July, either we just, since it falls on that holiday, we just have one meeting in July unless we need a special meeting. And that's up to the council.
Have we ever considered meeting at the fair?
We have done that in the past,
Oh,
but this year it's on the 4th, so.
Well, I know the county, I don't know if the county changes their meeting days to come in. I can't imagine they're going to meet on the 4th either.
No, they're actually going to meet on the 30th of June this year. The first day of the fair is when they typically meet. But we did it one year. Wasn't a lot of folks there, or 2 years, yeah, about two years ago.
Yeah, but we met 2 years,
Yeah.
I think, didn't we?
Yeah, I think so. And we didn't get a lot of attendance or anything, and it didn't seem like it did anything, so we decided to, that's why we haven't done it since then. But if you guys want to do it, we can always,
Were there fewer people than there are here today?
yeah.
Oh. Not exactly. Not at the fair. Well, right, no, for sure.
Just at the meeting.
Yeah. Have we considered cheese curds or something? Can you do that? Is that, okay.
But it's up to you guys. I mean, so is everybody in favor of moving the first meeting in June to the 13th?
I'm fine with that.
Yep.
Sure.
Okay. We'll schedule that one that way, and then we can, what about the 4th? That meeting? If we feel we need to have one, we can always do a special one after that, and then still do our last one in July, if there's something that's pressing.
Sounds good.
That sounds like a good idea.
Punt for the time being.
I mean, especially if it's something to do with planning or something having to start as far as a project or something, then we can really make sure that we do that. But
Good.
that all? Okay. Let know.
Just want to thank you for approving the credit and debit card issue tonight. I think that'll be a good thing for the city and something that we'll start working on shortly.
Tom alluded to it, the chief missed it, this weekend is the garage sales in town, and there's, as we all know, Saturday morning is going to be tough driving, so if you're listening or if you're here, please drive carefully. And nothing to report, but I want to say that the parks are being, the parks look great. Eastside Park across from my house is used every day when there's no rain. It looks beautiful, and sweepers are out and the streets look good.
Yes, just keep an eye out for your beacon this week, and there's some stuff on Facebook as well about it. We are collecting donations of pollinator-friendly plants to create a pollinator garden at the Minnehaska Park bed, right there by the Swan Pond. And there will be a colored and labeled sort of representation of the sorts of plants that we would be looking for if you happen to have some in your garden at home, or you happen to be like me in a garden center or two over the coming weekends and you wanted to pick up a baby plant. There's some master gardener interns in town, along with the folks at the Public Works Department, who are preparing that bed and getting it ready to be a pollinator-friendly garden, probably with some signage that has some educational value to those passersby who may be interested. And thank you.
Welcome, John.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Well, nothing tonight. Nothing tonight. I'm listening.
It's a lot to throw at you the first night, isn't it? Yeah. Leroy?
Nothing.
Ken?
Well, I don't know how many people realize that our wastewater treatment plant got an award from the state for doing such an excellent job, so they've done a great job there. And from talking to a surveyor out on the job for the County 42 and Highway 52, that switchover is tentatively planned for this coming weekend, so be prepared for some fun driving there.
All right, I did forget one thing earlier. I do have somebody that is willing to become a citizen rep for the Public Works Commission by the name of Jacqueline Pavic, and she is looking forward to doing it. And if council, with council's approval, I will let her know.
Sure. Yeah.
Do I need a motion for that? So can I get a motion for that?
Second.
Motion by Mike, second by Ken. All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Welcome.
Today I had the opportunity to go see, witness the promotion of Colonel Jesse Johnson, a resident here of Cannon Falls. He grew up here, joined the Army, and he was promoted down at the Veterans Memorial today to Lieutenant Colonel. It was a real nice ceremony, and congratulations to Colonel Johnson and his family for a job well done and for the service to our country that he has done for us. Also, congratulations to the high school speech team who won the state speech tournament in their class. So congratulations to those kids that they always do a good job every year. For those that are traveling towards Kenyon, remember that Highway 56 is closed going that way. So if you take 19 and try to go 56, they're replacing a bridge over there. I found out the hard way today. I got all the way there, had to turn around and go back and take 24 to get to 56 to go to Kenyon. So just a heads up on that. And then on Highway 52 between the Highway 19 bridge and the interchange, they are going to be replacing the bridge, so there's going to be some traffic delays and stuff on 52 there, and also there will be some traffic delays as they continue to work on the interchange up there also on the roundabouts. And they are starting to pave from Rochester to Cannon Falls northbound on 52, so construction season has begun in Minnesota. So, and with that, the chair will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ken, second by Morris. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, let's take about a 5-minute break, and then we'll start into the work session.